Hey, read through the word. Today's April 8th, and today's lesson is called Redemption. So the verse we're looking at specifically is the very first verse in our readings today, and it says, "So Boaz took Ruth into his home, and she became his wife." So I love how they closed out the ending of the story and then left the rest for us to read today, which I'm glad. So we're going to talk about, and then it will finish up with Ruth and Boaz get married. Then the next part of the verse says that she has a son, and the son's name is Obed. Obed has a son named Jesse, and Jesse has a son named David. The David, King David. And so we'll also see this in Matthew chapter 1 as well. So I want to talk a little bit about two different things. Boaz himself and the idea of redemption or redeemer. Let's talk about Boaz first. So when we meet Boaz back at the barley harvest, we know that Boaz is a prominent, noble, a man of noble character. During the time, he is well known in the community, well respected, and he is the son of Rahab the prostitute. Yeah, that Rahab from Jericho. So he is her son, because the last time we saw Rahab is she was joining the people as they go into the land, and she marries Boaz's dad, which wasn't Boaz's dad at the time, but his name is Salmon. We're gonna say it that way, Salmon, like the fish. But that's his dad's name. And they get married and they have Boaz. So I always love to pause on this and to talk about Boaz and his treatment of Ruth. Boaz shows grace and kindness to Ruth. He protects Ruth. He is very careful with her. He wants her to be thought of right. He wants her to be respected and all of these things. He realizes here she is from Moab. Boaz himself is half Canaanite, remember? His mom's a Canaanite. So he understands where she's coming from into this land. But I always think about this, about his mother raising him how to treat a woman, because she is a woman his mom is a woman who knew what it was like to be treated like dirt by men, because she was a prostitute. And the idea of his care, his protection, his kindness, and the love he shows to Ruth shows us so much about Rahab and her belief in God, her faith in God, that she then raises a very godly man. And then this is his response to Ruth, because I think there's a lot about Ruth's background that reminds him of his own mother. And so there's a lot there with that relationship. So Boaz is, man, raise a Boaz. Raise a Boaz. I mean, that'd preach. I'm a Southerner. So it would as a parent, a godly person that knows how to treat others with kindness. That's severely lacking in the world today. So just that alone is a lot. But of who Boaz is. So, but then Boaz is this one thing. So we talk about he shows grace and kindness. He's a has noble character. He's half Canaanite. He's a son of a prostitute. But he's the eligible kinsman redeemer. Boaz does all of these other things, but this one thing is what makes this whole story be what it is, about redemption. What does this mean, redeemer? I'm glad you asked. Okay, so it's time to bring out the nerdy book again. I just, instead of bringing the Strongs and the Vines and all of that, I just brought the vines, and I know this is backwards, and Linda might fix it where it won't be backwards. And so, but if it is, it's the vines, and I'll list it. And so, we look up, so we're Old Testament, so if we want to understand this whole idea of redeemer, redemption, we need to go back to the verb to redeem. So when we look at to redeem, so with the vines, or if you find the vines online, you're looking for the Hebrew form of to redeem. And it is G-A-A-L, and I'll put it down below. It says to redeem, to deliver, avenge, or act as a kinsman. That's what it means. It says this word group is used 90 times, chiefly in the Pentateuch, Psalms, Isaiah, and Ruth. It's used in Ruth 23 times alone, just in the book of Ruth. So it appears almost exclusively Hebrew. Like there's not another connotation or understanding of it. Hebrew. There's a very strong Hebrew connotation. It says the only cognate, the only other word form you can find of it in any of the surrounding areas and languages is an Amorite proper name. So G-A-A-L, you could find it as a name somewhere. This whole idea of redeemer, but it's not this same idea of redeemer, kinsman, redeemer, redemption. And it says, so you see all these ideas of redeeming. You see the Levites are redeemed by God, bought back by God. And we talked about that. You see the whole idea of a redeemer comes from this. It says that the basic use has to do with the deliverance of a person or property that's been sold for a debt, as in Leviticus 25:25. It says that the responsibility to redeem belongs to the nearest relative. So if you have a debt, specifically in the book of Ruth, she has a field and she can buy it back, but it has to be, she has nothing. They have to do it through a kinsman redeemer. So Boaz redeems the field and then he redeems Ruth. And it says the person or the idea to redeem belongs to the nearest relative, a brother, an uncle's cousin, or a blood relative from his family. The person who redeems is the kinsman, is known as a kinsman redeemer, as the word is translated in Ruth 2:20. And it says the book of Ruth is a beautiful account of the kinsman redeemer. His responsibility is summed up in Ruth 4:5. Thus, the kinsman redeemer is responsible preserving the integrity, the life, the property, and the name of his close relative. And then you also see the word, the other major use of the word redeemer is when it first sets up the idea of a kinsman redeemer. Then when we see a kinsman redeemer actually happen in the book of Ruth with Boaz. And then the other time we see the use of redeemer is God himself. How he says that he redeems and what he does. So when you look at this idea of how the word is used in the Old Testament, you see 23 of those 90 times is used in the book of Ruth. So 13 of the other usage are in the book of Isaiah, only of God himself, how God redeems. And then you see it in the book of Psalms as well. So, and then the other times you'd seen it is in Exodus and Leviticus when it sets up this idea. So, all of that said, the nerdy side, redemption, what does it mean? This idea of having lost absolutely everything, your place, position, your name, your property, and unable to buy that back yourself, someone has to do it for you. And that's what we see in Ruth. And see, God sets up all of these ideas ahead of us to remember big G God, the providence of God, how God is in control. That God set up all of this to teach this lesson that we first see placed before us, lived out in Boaz and Ruth. and this Redeemer and this idea of redemption. But remember, what does this teach us about God? Who he is, how big he is. What does this teach me about myself as a sinner? I need bought back from something. What has control over me? Sin. I need someone to redeem me. What does this teach me about Jesus? Yes, this is it. This is all about Jesus. The whole thing. Not only were we given the genealogy of Jesus, this will show up in Matthew chapter 1 that includes both Rahab and now we'll have Ruth, is we are getting the story of redemption and how we need bought back. And this is showing us how it works. Remember, physical Old Testament, spiritual truth of the New Testament. It's all about Jesus. What this shows us is in Scripture, we look forward to a kinsman redeemer, Jesus. Jesus will redeem his people from sin. And then what we look at as we close out. So 2 days in the book of Ruth. As we close out the book of Ruth, what are we seeing? You know, we talked about this yesterday. This starts out as a tragedy. I mean, death, famine. You're like, oh, wow, this is bad. I just finished Judges and that was bad. And now Ruth, whoa. But it ends with hope. And we always say that Ruth is a love story. And yeah, it's a great love story with Boaz and Ruth. But it's more than that. This is God's love story towards us as he extends his grace to his people, and that we see that God continually redeems his people, and he's still redeeming now. I use this picture a lot, and I've used it with you before, but I'm going to remind you of it today. And then we'll close out for the day. But so many times in life, and the story of Ruth, and the whole Bible, and God's picture of everything is the view of it. It's like it's God's tapestry of grace. The whole Bible is God's tapestry of grace. This beautiful picture he's making, that he sees the picture of this beautiful story he's telling of his love for his people. The problem is we see the underside of it. That needlepoint, cross stitch, sewing, all those ugly threads that are crisscrossing everywhere and look like a bunch jumbled of mess. That's what we see. God sees the other side. God sees this tapestry of grace he's making. The story that he's telling in his word, and he continually tells to us through our lives and through the redemptive plan that works in the life of the Christian today. So, don't miss the tapestry of grace that he's building for his people by looking at the ugly threads. So, we'll see you next time on Read Through the Word.